The top business stories live from the Sky newsroom. It's off with Ofwat. The government officially announces the abolition of the embattled regulator. The Work and Pension Secretary Liz Kendall announces a review of the state pension age, as experts warn future pensioners could be worse off. Plus, one of the world's most valuable clubs, Arsenal, strikes a new sponsorship deal ahead of its upcoming tour in Asia. A very good afternoon on this Monday Business Live with me, Darren McCaffrey. The government has confirmed that the water regulator Ofwat is to be abolished, with ministers promising the biggest overhaul of water since privatisation. This come after a report by the Independent Water Commission, which found a fundamental reset of the water industry was needed to raise standards in the industry. Well, we can listen now into the Environment Secretary, Steve Reid, who is speaking in...
Water pipes have been left to crumble into disrepair, and I share customers' fury at rising bills. There are hose pipe bans right now in place across the country because not a single new reservoir has been built in over 30 years, and the lack of water infrastructure is blocking economic growth. Water companies have been allowed to profit at the expense of the British people when they should have been investing to fix our broken water pipes. They got away with this because of a broken regulatory system that has failed customers and failed the environment. The public expressed their fury during last year's general election, and they voted for change. That change will now come. In just 1 year, we've put in place the building blocks for change. First, we restored accountability by giving the regulators more teeth, with a ban on unfair bonuses, severe and automatic penalties for breaking the law, and jail sentences for the most serious offences. Second, we're investing £104 billion of private sector funding to rebuild the water network, upgrading crumbling pipes, repairing leaks, building new sewage treatment works, and digging out new reservoirs. This is the single biggest investment in the water sector's history, and it allows me to make a new commitment to the country that this government will cut water companies' sewage pollution in half by the end of this decade. This is the most ambitious commitment ever made by any government about water pollution, and it's just the start. Because over a decade of national renewal, we will restore our rivers, lakes and seas to good health. The third building block for change is today's final report from Sir John Cunliffe's Independent Water Commission. And I'd like to express my thanks to Sir John, his officials and all those who have contributed to this outstanding piece of work. I agree with Sir John that water regulation has been too weak, too complex and ineffective. Having 4 separate regulators with overlapping and conflicting remits has failed customers and the environment. Ofwat has failed to protect customers from water companies' mismanagement of their hard-earned money and failed to protect our waterways from record levels of pollution. Today, I can announce that this Labour government will abolish Ofwat. We will bring water functions from 4 different regulators into one, a single, powerful super regulator responsible for the entire water sector and with the teeth it needs to enforce the high standards the public rightly demand. The new regulator will stand firmly on the side of customers, investors and the environment, and it will prevent the abuses of the past. For customers, it will oversee investment and upgrade work so hard-working British families are never again hit by the shocking bill hikes we saw last year, as customers were left to pay the price of failure by the previous government. For investors, it will provide the clarity and direction required for a strong partnership between government, the sector and investors to attract billions of pounds of new funding. For the environment, it will reduce all forms of pollution to clean up our rivers, lakes and seas for good. We will work closely with the Welsh Government to devolve economic regulation of water to Wales. I will publish a white paper this autumn giving the government's full response to the Independent Water Commission's final report and launch a consultation on it. Following that, I will bring forward a new water reform bill early during the lifetime of this Parliament. Ofwat will remain in place during the transition to the new regulator, and I will ensure they provide the right leadership to oversee the current price review and investment plan during that time. To provide clarity during this period, I will issue an interim strategic policy statement to Ofwat and give ministerial directions to the Environment Agency, setting out our expectations and requirements. We will publish a transition plan as part of our full government response in the autumn. Today, we are immediately taking forward a number of Sir John's recommendations. First, we will establish a new statutory water ombudsman, a single free service to help customers resolve complaints such as incorrect bills, leaking pipes, or water supply failures. The new ombudsman will have the legal powers to protect customers and will bring the water dispute resolution process in line with other utilities like energy. It's part of the government's ambition to put customers at the heart of water regulation. Second,
there you go. That is Steve Reid speaking in the Commons about the changes that are going to be made to water regulation in this country, not least of all, as we heard there, Ofwat being given the boot in its entirety, while at the same time the government wanting to bring down the number of sewage bills by half by the end of this decade, but also having to accept that bills will rise in the short to medium term. So that's Steve Reid there speaking in the Commons. Now let's move you on to the other big announcement from the government today, and that is that the Work and Pension Secretary has announced a review of the state pension age. The government is required to conduct a review into the state pension age, currently 66, every 6 years. The last one, though, concluded back in 2023, and the new one announced today is due to finish in 2029. The review will consider whether the current state pension age is still appropriate based on factors such as life expectancy. Well, we can speak to Claire Trott, who's head of advice at St James's Place. Claire, very good afternoon to you. I suppose the question is, what's your sense of why the government have announced this a little bit earlier than people had thought?
I think they're tying it in with the Pensions Commission, to be totally honest. So this will also feed into that, so that they can make educated decisions with what they're going to do with pensions in a broader remit than just looking at state pension separately and then looking at private workplace pensions through the Pensions Commission and the investments around that. So I think it's tying it all together, and they want to get on and start looking with the Pensions Commission as soon as possible. So this work needs to start because it involves a fair amount of research, and the Government Actuaries Department needs to get their skates on and get looking at that.
And is the fundamental point here, not jumping ahead to whenever this report concludes, that the pension age needs to increase significantly quicker than it is at the moment, given the cost of it?
I think cost is always an issue, but the report itself really looks at the time you spend in retirement after state pension age and the proportion of life expectancy in that portion of life. And they set the limits around that, because actually it is about cost in a sense, because if you spend significantly more proportion after state pension age in receiving your state pension, then it's going to cost more, which I think is obviously a concern with increasing longevity. It's not obviously increasing as quickly as it has done in the past. So I think this research that they're going to do, that they're going to look into, may be very interesting. But you're right, it is something that the easiest way to reduce costs regarding the state pension is by pushing it back and people receiving it later in life. So it will end up saving government money, but not for a significant amount of time if we think about when these changes could come in.
Well, I'm reading here that the UK spends around 5% of its GDP on state pensions. That's up from 3.5% just 25 years ago, and it's going to cost £124 billion, or it did cost £124 billion last year. It is a lot of money, and it comes obviously with us a continued debate over the triple lock, but also at a time we learned today in which lots of people, frankly, are not saving at all for pension provision when they retire.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's large proportions of the workforce, and even if they're only working part-time, that are just not caught by the auto-enrolment. So self-employed, for example, those people with many small jobs who are only earning less than 10,000 won't be caught by the great changes that came in with the previous Pensions Commission with auto-enrolment. And even the basic amount saved through auto-enrolment pension schemes is not really enough to provide for the moderate or higher levels of retirement income that we'd all like to receive. So it's education that can be a real key to this, because you get put in at the default level, you're put in at a default investment, but actually you need to actively engage and make decisions to increase that amount or to not opt out, because actually when we've got cost of living issues, people choose to say, I'll have the money in my pocket today, not I'll take the tax relief and get some extra money now and save it for the future. So it's something that education is a really important point, as well as possibly considering whether or not we need to increase auto-enrolment, whether we not need to do something for the self-employed as well.
Yeah, isn't that the argument, though, Claire, is that you can educate people all you want, and the natural desire is just to kind of almost live for today and think about tomorrow, and that actually auto-enrolment has worked because it's a little bit sneaky, as in it just happens.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a part of lethal resistance, isn't it? And I think that's it. We have the ability to increase the levels that you can put in. We have the ability to extend the bands at which the calculations are done at the bare minimum. So, we can do that and start putting people into auto-enrolment when they're earning slightly less. And so it's all those sort of things that can be considered when we're looking with this Pensions Commission to actually think, how's the best way to get people to save more for a better retirement, so they're not falling back on the state in future years, and then the state pension will be a top up to that, because there's so many people that purely rely on their state pension. I think it's 17% only have state pension at the moment.
OK, Claire, it is such a big question, isn't it? And one I don't think we're ever really going to get a proper answer to. But it is one the government is going to, frankly, have to grapple with. Claire Trott, really appreciate your time this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Indeed. Now, the average house price has been falling at a record rate this month, according to the property website Rightmove. Data suggests it is a buyer's market at the moment, as average asking price dropped by 1.2% to just over £370,000, and was the second straight monthly decline in this figure. Let's speak to Colleen Babcock, who is a property expert at Rightmove. Very good afternoon to you. What is leading to these relatively sharp declines?
So there's a couple of different things happening. First of all, we've got the slightly slower summer months coming up. So we do tend to see things slow down around the time when people are going on holiday. But we also have a very high level of available stock at the moment. And that means that sellers are pricing really competitively in order to attract buyers. And so that's really what's underpinning this drop we're seeing in July. However, we're still seeing some really strong activity in terms of we're seeing great interest from buyers. And we're also seeing sales agreed being higher than we saw at this time last year. So there's still some good momentum in the market.
Are we seeing, or is this connected to the fact that more homes are being built, that there's more availability?
So right now, that's not necessarily the case. We aren't seeing a huge number of homes being built at the moment. And part of that is because there are so many available resale homes happening and available for buyers. So it is just generally the level of available homes for sale and that tempting pricing that sellers are going towards in order to attract buyers that's keeping the price a little bit lower. But I would say that actually the annual price, the year on year, is still in the positive, just at 0.1%. So there's still positives happening there in terms of pricing. One
of the hardest hit places seems to be central London. Do we have a sense of why that is? I mean, how much, for example, has the stamp duty hike at the start of this financial year contributed maybe to what's happening in London and elsewhere?
Well, you're absolutely spot on. The stamp duty holiday that came to an end at the end of March did have a big impact. And you can see that in our data. So Londoners were really pulling forward their activity into November and December, which are typically quieter times of the year. And that was to beat that stamp duty deadline. So activity levels were high across the board for London, whereas the rest of the regions were quieter at that point. And now we're seeing the reverse. So London is seeing both a larger decline in the average asking price and seeing a lower interest from buyers and also a lower level of sales agreed compared to this time last year. And then you've also got other factors like changes to non-dom tax rules. And you've also got sort of rumored changes around taxes. And so that sort of uncertainty will be making things a little bit more difficult in the London market as well.
And just very finally on this, it is in essence a good news story if you are a buyer, because we know that average wages are a little bit suppressed to where they were certainly at the start of this year, but there's still outpacing inflation, and they're still outpacing, of course, those rises in house prices. This is a good time to be a buyer, particularly clearly in the capital.
It is a great time to be a buyer. It's also worth pointing out that it's a great time to be a seller if you are also buying, particularly if you are trading up. So if you're buying in a more expensive area or you're getting a larger home, this is a great time. You might get a little bit less for the property that you're selling, but you're going to get much better value for the property you're buying. So it's a great time for those people as well as first-time buyers.
OK, fascinating stuff. Colleen, we really appreciate your time from Rightmove. Thank you very much. Indeed, in central London, mind you, as well. Thank you.
Yes.
OK, you're watching Business Live here on Sky News. Coming up next, why one of the world's most valuable football clubs has struck a sponsorship deal with a Singaporean fintech firm. We're speaking to them and asking why after this quick break. Stay tuned.
Turkey is burying its dead.
Whole families died in this collapse, generations wiped out. I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin.
This is just a small sample of the deadly arsenal taken off the streets.
Anyone could say, I'll do that, and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes.
Sky News, get the full story first.
We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club.
Free wherever you get your news. I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
Turkey is burying its dead. Whole families died in this collapse. Generations wiped out. I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin. This is just a small sample of the deadly arsenal taken off the streets.
Anyone could say, I'll do that, and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes.
Sky News, get the full story first.
Very welcome back to Business Live. Now, one of the world's most valuable football clubs has struck a sponsorship deal with a Singaporean payments firm that will see Airwallex become Arsenal's new fintech partner. The company hopes to see a return on its investments when the club, which unveils its new away kit, travels to Singapore and Hong Kong later this year for pre-season fixtures, as well as improving Arsenal's own payment platform. Well, delighted to say, joining me now is Ben Hornby, who's the director of Airwallex. Very good afternoon to you, Ben. I suppose the first question here is, when you think about, because you're a payments firm and obviously you want to get your name out there, don't you? When you think about what you're going to sponsor, what you're not, and how much it's worth and what it's not, what are the factors that come into play?
Hey, Darren. First of all, thanks for having me on. Yeah, it's a super interesting question. And I think for your viewers who maybe aren't aware of Airwallex and what we do, we are a global payments platform servicing 150,000 customers internationally, helping them optimize the way that they collect, manage, and spend their funds internationally. And so when we're looking at these partners, I think what we really sort of crave, if you will, is someone who is also trying to build a global brand, who has significant global reach, but is also, using innovation as we do through technology to try and sort of accelerate that process. And, with Arsenal, we saw great alignment there across, all of those sort of four things that we'd look for in a partnership like this.
And this is a good reflection, is it, of kind of the UK's soft power and, in essence, the Arsenal is a global brand that can reach markets as far away as Hong Kong and Singapore?
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, the team travel there today. I think what is awesome for us, we work with B2B, is this is not just a brand partnership. This is a software partnership as well. And so we'll be helping Arsenal, optimize their day-to-day financial operations, but also, ensuring that we give, their fans, both here in the UK, but also internationally, an awesome experience when they're coming onto the website, to purchase tickets or whatever that might be. And so I think, the relevance is both domestic and international in that sense.
But in saying that, how do you? We're looking at. I think it's some type of advertisement from Arsenal. I think it's the new kit. Apparently, I've been told. I mean, you could get very caught up in all of that. I want to talk about how do you value this, though? In essence, you guys are spending money on this. How do you know that you've kind of made your return or done better? What are the kind of markers for that when it comes to you guys?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. I think we're very lucky that this is actually our second sports team activation. So a couple of years ago, we began working with McLaren F1 team. And for us as a brand that was founded in Melbourne back in 2015 and maybe doesn't have that strength or brand awareness here in Europe, that has been mega for us. It's supercharged sort of awareness amongst customers, and I think it's also been very nice for us that the timing of our partnership with McLaren sort of led to them, even if we may have only played a small part in winning their first championship for 26 years. And as you may see with the pictures behind me there, and I am actually a lifelong Arsenal fan and season ticket holder myself. So,
well, it's been
I'm
a pretty
hoping
tough time for you guys recently. I don't think you've won anything, so you're clearly hoping maybe this deal's going to turn things around.
I mean, that's it. Yeah, if the McLaren deal was anything to go by, hopefully we see this sort of immediacy in success for Arsenal as well.
And just very finally on all of this, is it just sports? You know, where else does kind of sponsorship take you, if you like?
I think, like, as a brand, we want to be fishing in pools, you know, where our customers or potential customers exist, right? And you know, sport and, you know, F1 and in particular football has incredible reach, both to consumers but also to businesses as well. And as I mentioned at the start, you know, everything that we do is global, and you know, we have offices around the world and service customers around the world as well. And so we really want our partnerships to match that.
Okay, Ben, we really appreciate your time this afternoon. It's fascinating, the kind of business model of sponsorship and how it all works. Thank you very much indeed, Ben Hornby there. Thank you. Okay, that is it from me on Business Live for this afternoon. We're back, of course, at 11:30 tomorrow morning. Do join me then if you can. Up next, it's the News Hour with Mark Austin. I'll see you in the morning. Good evening.